Please understand that video thumbnails are created to attract attention and may not always reflect the actual content. They are creative representations designed to engage viewers. We appreciate your understanding and hope you enjoy the video. While we strive to provide accurate and valuable information, this video is intended for reference and educational purposes only. The content reflects a collection of viewpoints and insights, selectively gathered from articles, social media posts, public forums, news sites, and online discussions. We do not claim absolute accuracy, nor is this video intended as an official or authoritative source. Viewers are encouraged to conduct their own research, compare information from multiple trusted sources, and approach all online content, including this one, with a critical and discerning mindset. This video does not intend to target or discredit any individual, organization, or nation. Its purpose is not to determine what is definitively right or wrong, but to encourage thoughtful reflection and highlight lessons we can learn from current events. Please watch with an open mind, reflect thoughtfully, and thank you for being part of this journey with us. A great deal has transpired across the globe recently, shifting geopolitical landscapes and travel norms. Let us delve into some of these significant developments. It is often said that Canadians find a welcome mat rolled out globally. But does that sentiment hold true as we approach the year 2025? What occurs when the passport that once elicited smiles suddenly becomes a reason for refusal at international borders? The world is changing, and the perception of Canadian travelers might be shifting along with it. From unforeseen visa restrictions to political frictions that flared up seemingly overnight, several nations have subtly signaled that Canadians might not be as universally invited as they once were. Why are entry points potentially closing to citizens of one of the world's reputedly most courteous nations? Is it the result of diplomatic tensions, burgeoning global unease, or something more profound lurking beneath the surface? We will explore these questions and provide insights, with conclusions drawn at the very end of this analysis. Some of the destinations discussed might be surprising, not conflict zones but rather popular tourist locales. So, before you confirm that flight booking and start packing your travel essentials, let us examine 10 countries where Canadians might find themselves no longer unequivocally welcome in 2025. Please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the like button. Your support is crucial for helping us bring these important stories to light. We would also love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know where you are watching from. Consider North Korea. It is a nation where every action is monitored, and a single misstep could lead to disappearing without a trace. Yet astonishingly, some Canadians continue attempting to visit, often with unfavorable outcomes. North Korea has persistently been an enigma, shrouded in secrecy. However, in 2025, it has evolved into one of the most perilous places for Canadians to even contemplate visiting. The Canadian government explicitly cautions its citizens, avoid all travel to North Korea. This is not merely a suggestion for show. There have been documented instances where Canadians were detained, subjected to intense interrogation, and entirely cut off from external assistance. There is no Canadian embassy within the country, meaning no readily available consular help and no straightforward way out if circumstances take a turn for the worse. No one is readily available to intervene if things go awry. Please make sure to watch this video until the very end, as we will be summarizing the key findings and offering concluding thoughts. Despite these stark warnings and inherent dangers, travelers, including Canadians, seem drawn to North Korea, almost like moths to a dangerous flame. What fuels this attraction? Is it pure curiosity, the allure of the forbidden, or perhaps the thrill associated with extreme danger? You might be taken aback by the number of individuals who still apply for entry visas, only for some to vanish into silence, their whereabouts unknown. In a territory where even voicing a dissenting opinion can result in imprisonment, one must seriously question if the potential experience is truly worth the immense risk involved. The lack of diplomatic channels and the severe restrictions on movement and communication make any trip exceptionally hazardous. Next, consider the United States. It might seem like the last country one would expect to feature on a list of this nature, given the close ties and extensive border shared with Canada. Yet here we find ourselves discussing it. In 2025, the relationship between Canada and its southern neighbor has encountered an unexpected rough patch, creating difficulties, particularly for academics, journalists, and individuals who, for various reasons, might appear suspicious to border officials. Canadian university faculty members have received explicit warnings advising against travel due to numerous reports of detainment, aggressive questioning tactics, and denial of entry without any provided explanation. You might assume your passport guarantees protection, but what if it ceases to be sufficient? What if simply being Canadian is no longer enough assurance for smooth passage? Border agents in the United States now possess sweeping authority to search personal belongings, seize electronic devices, and turn travelers back, all without necessarily offering a clear justification for their actions. The number of Canadians who have been turned away at major airports or endured hours-long interrogations at land crossings would likely shock many. How did relations reach this point? And more significantly, who else might be affected by these tightening measures? The situation underscores a changing dynamic that requires careful consideration for Canadian travelers. Before we proceed, please ensure you are subscribed to our channel. Your subscription enables us to continue shedding light on stories and situations that might otherwise remain obscured. More surprising countries are yet to come. Think about Brazil, a nation renowned for its vibrant beaches, exuberant festivals, and radiant sun. You would imagine such a country, famous for carnival, sunshine, and samba, would consistently roll out the welcome mat for international visitors. However, in 2025, circumstances have taken an abrupt turn, and it is not necessarily in Canada's favor. Brazil has reimposed visa requirements on Canadian citizens. That is correct. After a period of enjoying visa-free travel privileges, Canadians are now being informed. Not so fast. As of April 10, 2025, the Brazilian government reinstated entry visa mandates, catching numerous travelers off guard and disrupting plans. What precipitated this change? Official statements point towards the principle of reciprocity. Since Canada mandates visas for certain Brazilian nationals, Brazil has opted to mirror this treatment. But consider this. The impact resonates more deeply than it might initially appear. Travelers are now caught in bureaucratic limbo, compelled to apply for visas weeks in advance, potentially attend consulate interviews, and navigate often confusing online application forms, simply for a vacation. Yet, it is not solely about the paperwork. There is a palpable growing unease. Some Canadians have reported being questioned extensively upon arrival about their intentions, their planned itineraries, and even their social media activity. Is this merely standard procedure being applied more rigorously, or is it indicative of underlying tensions simmering beneath the surface? Tourism officials might claim it is no major issue, attempting to downplay the inconvenience. However, here is a crucial point. Travel bookings from Canada saw a significant drop in early 2025. Airlines are consequently reducing the frequency of direct flights, and travel agencies are actively urging clients to consider alternative destinations. The dream of experiencing Brazil's natural wonders, from the vast Amazon rainforest to the spectacular Iguazu Falls, now feels somewhat more distant and complicated for Canadians. So, before dusting off those flip-flops and finalizing that flight, ask yourself, is navigating the new complex process worth the hassle? Will the country that once embraced visitors with open arms provide the same warm reception upon landing? Because in 2025, it is not just about where you desire to go, it is increasingly about where you are still permitted entry without significant hurdles. Let's turn our attention to Spain. It remains a quintessential dream destination for many, offering sun-drenched Mediterranean beaches, captivating historic cities, and the delightful experience of paella by the sea. However, for Canadians planning travel in 2025, that dream is morphing into an unforeseen complication. Spain has discreetly begun enforcing new travel restrictions that impact various nationalities, and yes, Canada is among them. You might be surprised at how quickly the narrative has shifted. Once a European hotspot eagerly visited by Canadian travelers, Spain now presents new entry obstacles. This change stems from a combination of factors, including diplomatic recalibrations within the European Union, broader border tightening measures across the Schengen area, and a regional strategy shift regarding non-EU visitors, a development that caught many prospective travelers unaware. While it is not an outright prohibition, the regulations are undeniably stricter. The scrutiny at borders is more intense, and the overall welcome feels cooler than before. Several Canadian travelers have already faced denial of entry or have been compelled to provide more than just a return ticket and a friendly smile. Proof of accommodation, detailed financial statements, and in some instances, even health records are being requested upon arrival. Why this sudden alteration in policy? Insiders suggest it is partially linked to EU-wide security enhancements. Others whisper about political trade-offs occurring behind closed doors. But here lies the fundamental question. Are Canadians becoming unwitting travel collateral in larger geopolitical chess games? Tour operators throughout Europe have quietly started flagging Canadian passports as requiring review or additional scrutiny. Furthermore, travel insurance agencies are reassessing their risk models for trips to the Iberian Peninsula, potentially leading to higher premiums or modified coverage for Canadian citizens. So, if you are contemplating a European vacation, particularly to Spain, pause and reconsider. Think again. If your passport bears the maple leaf, be prepared for potentially longer lines at immigration, extra questions, and sometimes, unfortunately, no entry at all. This is merely the beginning of understanding these evolving travel dynamics. Now, let us consider South Sudan. There are destinations where travel poses inconveniences, and then there are places where a journey could potentially cost you your life. South Sudan, recognized as the world's youngest nation, might appear on the map, but for Canadians in 2025, it is effectively off-limits due to extreme safety concerns. Officially, the Canadian government strongly advises against all travel to the country. This advisory is not limited to adventure seekers or journalists. It applies universally. We are talking about everyone. Business travelers, aid workers, even seasoned globetrotters are being sternly warned. Do not go. Why such a definitive stance? The reason is stark. South Sudan is currently in the throes of intense internal conflict. The resulting chaos runs far deeper than surface-level inconveniences. Violent clashes between factions, the proliferation of armed militias operating with impunity, and unpredictable checkpoints controlled by various groups create an environment where safety simply cannot be guaranteed. You would be shocked at how rapidly a seemingly routine trip to a local market can escalate into a life-or-death scenario. And here is the chilling reality. Canadian citizens caught in emergencies within South Sudan face extremely limited options for assistance. There is no functioning Canadian embassy presence in the country, and local authorities are often unable or unwilling to provide protection. Consequently, even your home government cannot guarantee help. You are essentially on your own. In early 2025, humanitarian reports confirmed a disturbing rise in attacks targeting foreign nationals. Some individuals were detained without cause, others were robbed, and a few simply disappeared without a trace. This is not fear-mongering. It is documented fact based on credible reports from organizations operating on the ground. What continues to draw people to such a perilous place? Perhaps oil contracts, participation in peacekeeping missions, or vital NGO work. But here is the critical caveat. These roles often lack adequate security protocols. Some Canadians have been lured into the country by what seemed like meaningful work opportunities, only to find themselves trapped in evacuation zones when conflict erupted. Canadians hoping to visit friends or family in the region are facing heartbreaking decisions. With flights sporadic at best, and many land borders partially closed or blocked by rebel forces, even departing South Sudan can become a high-stakes operation. So, before you input South Sudan as your destination or dream about making a difference in this troubled land, ask yourself, how far is too far? Because in South Sudan, even a small step can lead into the dangerous unknown. Consider Somalia. Some travel destinations merely test your comfort zone. This one fundamentally tests your survival instincts. Somalia is, without exaggeration, one of the most dangerous places on Earth for Canadian travelers in 2025. And yet, paradoxically, people still attempt to go. But guess what? Many who venture there do not return the same, if they return at all. Canadian authorities are not mincing words. Avoid all travel. This is not a suggestion to simply reconsider or exercise caution. It is a direct, unambiguous warning. Why? The reasons are severe and numerous. Widespread terrorism, an ongoing and brutal civil war, rampant piracy along its extensive coastline, and a staggering lack of effective government control over significant portions of the country. The security situation is extraordinarily volatile and perilous. You would be shocked by the frequency of kidnappings targeting foreigners in recent years. Some are held for ransom, their release negotiated under dire circumstances. Others simply vanish, leaving behind unanswered questions and grieving families. Armed groups actively target foreigners, and possessing a Canadian passport offers no shield. Instead, it can act as a spotlight, making you a more visible target. Even major urban centers like Mogadishu provide minimal safety guarantees. Hotels, airports, and government buildings are all potential targets for attacks, which occur with alarming regularity. Unlike more stable nations, Somalia lacks the basic infrastructure to respond swiftly or effectively to security threats. In an emergency, help might be hours, days, or potentially never arrive. Furthermore, there are growing concerns about misinformation circulating on social media platforms, where some adventure travel influencers irresponsibly downplay the extreme risks involved. Do not be fooled by curated online portrayals. What might appear as an intriguing visit to a remote village on YouTube could be masking a far more dangerous and complex reality. The Canadian government works closely with international allies to monitor the evolving situation, but consular access is incredibly limited, bordering on non-existent in many areas. If you are arrested, injured, or worse, rescue operations are highly improbable. Are you still contemplating a trip for business, charity, or journalism? Here is a sobering wake-up call. Several international organizations have already withdrawn their staff from Somalia in 2025 due to escalating threats and untenable security conditions. The few aid workers who remain operate under military escort, confined behind fortified walls and under constant surveillance. So, here's the crucial question to ask yourself. Is there any reason compelling enough to risk everything in such an environment? Before continuing, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us dig deeper, shine brighter, and keep revealing the places Canadians need to avoid. The more you know, the safer you stay. Let's examine Syria. There is an undeniable layer of history in the air, thousands of years of it etched into the landscape. Ancient ruins whisper stories of bygone eras, but beneath the relics and remnants of a rich past lies a present reality that is far more dangerous than it might appear from afar. Syria remains one of the most hostile environments globally for Canadians in 2025. It is not just about the lingering effects of war, it is about what the protracted conflict has left behind. Bombed-out cities struggling to rebuild, fractured governance with competing authorities, roaming militias operating outside formal control, and a complex minefield of shifting allegiances and unpredictable violence. This unstable situation makes the country nearly impossible to navigate safely. The Canadian government issues a clear and stark warning. Avoid all travel to Syria. You would be shocked how many people still attempt to go, perhaps chasing family ties, driven by humanitarian efforts, or simply drawn by a sense of connection to a land that once thrived. However, what they often find instead is a perilous patchwork of armed zones, where a Canadian passport means very little and might even make you a target. In 2025, aerial strikes are still occurring sporadically in certain regions. Civilians continue to be caught in the crossfire between various factions. Terrorist organizations, some splintered and others re-emerging, persist in operating within the shadows. This is not the kind of danger easily visible on a travel map. It is the kind that can change violently and without warning in mere minutes. Traveling to Syria isn't just risking your safety, you are risking your freedom. There have been multiple substantiated reports of foreign nationals, including Canadians, being detained arbitrarily and held without due process or access to consular assistance. In some areas, law enforcement is barely distinguishable from the militias they supposedly oppose, and once you are inside Syria, getting out can become a labyrinthine challenge with no clear map or reliable exit route. Even Canadian organizations attempting to provide aid face severe restrictions, constant surveillance, and credible threats. Their teams operate under immense pressure, sometimes requiring emergency evacuation at a moment's notice. If you believe you are protected because you are traveling with a humanitarian mission, think again. Syria is not merely recovering from conflict. It is still deeply embroiled in it, with complex internal and external factors contributing to ongoing instability. So, before you dream of wandering the ancient streets of Damascus or exploring the evocative ruins of Palmyra, remember this crucial point. The past may hold beauty, but the present is unforgiving and extremely dangerous for outsiders. Consider Sudan. It is one of those countries that often fades from the headlines, only to explode back into global consciousness when conflict erupts. And in 2025, it has done just that, with devastating consequences. Sudan is now gripped by some of the most intense internal conflict witnessed in decades, tearing the nation apart. For Canadians, this translates into one critical piece of advice from their government. Do not go. What is happening on the ground is nothing short of chaos. You would be shocked at how swiftly an entire city can shift from a relative safe zone to an active evacuation zone, sometimes within a single day. The civil war has fractured the country once again. Armed groups now control major roads, key cities, and even airports, making travel extraordinarily hazardous and unpredictable. In April 2025, multiple foreign nationals were trapped during a surprise siege of Khartoum, the capital. Among them were Canadian citizens, including aid workers performing essential tasks. Some had to be rescued through high-risk emergency extraction teams coordinated internationally. Others, tragically, were not so fortunate. Canada has closed its embassy in Sudan indefinitely, and all consular support is now handled remotely, assuming communication lines are even functional. Power outages are frequent. Internet access is often blocked or unreliable, and the crumbling infrastructure means that obtaining help in an emergency could be nearly impossible. There are widespread reports of looting, mass displacement of civilian populations, and even forced conscriptions by various rebel groups operating across the country. If you are caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, your options become extremely limited. And yes, Canadians have been specifically targeted in the past, not necessarily because of their nationality per se, but because of what they represent as foreigners in a volatile environment. Even attempting to cross land borders into neighboring countries is fraught with danger, as many crossings are unstable or controlled by unpredictable forces. Therefore, once you enter Sudan, you are not just stepping into danger. You are stepping into a potential trap with limited escape routes. What might still be drawing people in? Some are trying to reconnect with family caught in the conflict. Others are hoping to provide humanitarian assistance. But the harsh reality on the ground does not care about good intentions. It only cares about survival. Let's discuss South Africa. It is undeniably a land of breathtaking landscapes, incredibly diverse cultures, and a historically booming tourism industry that draws visitors from around the globe. However, in 2025, South Africa is rapidly becoming a destination where Canadians are seriously rethinking their travel plans due to escalating concerns. You might be shocked to learn that South Africa, despite its many attractions, ranks as one of the most dangerous countries worldwide for travelers, including Canadians, at this moment. Sure, the sheer beauty of its beaches, the majesty of its wildlife reserves, and the vibrancy of its cities might make you think it is a trouble-free paradise. But beneath this alluring surface simmers a complex web of high crime rates, persistent political instability, and significant economic turmoil that is brewing considerable unease. South Africa's crime statistics are alarmingly high, consistently ranking among the worst globally. This is particularly true in major urban centers such as Johannesburg and Cape Town, but crime affects rural areas as well. Violent crime, including armed robberies, carjackings, and physical assaults, is unfortunately on the rise, and Canadian travelers have found themselves caught in the crossfire. Tourists, especially those unfamiliar with the local dangers and potentially appearing more affluent, are often prime targets for criminals. In 2025, Canadians traveling to South Africa are being warned by their government to exercise extreme caution. Updated travel advisories urge visitors to avoid certain areas altogether, especially after dark, and to be constantly aware of their surroundings. In many regions, even local residents feel the tangible effects of this pervasive instability and insecurity. Security measures have been ramped up in tourist areas and affluent neighborhoods, but so has the desperation driving the violence. The reality is that absolute safety cannot be guaranteed, and even the most seasoned travelers can find themselves vulnerable. But guess what? It is not just the cities that pose risks. Even remote areas, often considered safer escapes from urban life, are becoming increasingly dangerous. Wildlife conservation areas, popular for safaris, have faced rising threats from sophisticated poaching gangs and other armed groups who sometimes target tourists for robbery, or worse. And it is not just about physical safety. The economic instability is pushing more and more South Africans into desperate circumstances, making theft and violence an unfortunate necessity for survival for some. With unemployment rates at staggeringly high levels and inflation running wild, even the local population faces an uphill battle daily. So, before you plan your next safari adventure or dream of hiking the iconic Table Mountain, ask yourself, is it truly worth risking your safety and peace of mind in a place where danger could be lurking just around the corner? Finally, let's talk about Germany. It is renowned as a land steeped in history, rich in culture, and boasting significant economic power within Europe and globally. But in 2025, Germany is exhibiting signs of becoming a less universally welcoming destination for travelers, particularly Canadians. At first glance, Germany might seem like the ideal European getaway. Think of Berlin's vibrant 24-hour nightlife, Munich's famous beer gardens and Oktoberfest celebrations, and the picturesque charm of the Bavarian Alps. These are all attractions that feature prominently on many travelers' bucket lists. However, if you dig a little deeper, you might be surprised by the subtle but significant shift happening in 2025 regarding entry and stay for non-EU nationals. You would be shocked to learn that Germany, once a place where Canadians could roam relatively freely for extended periods, has notably tightened its immigration and travel policies. This applies particularly to those non-EU citizens, including Canadians, who are looking to stay long-term for work, study, or other purposes. The once straightforward passage into the country now involves more bureaucratic hurdles and potentially longer processing times. In fact, Canada's own travel advisory for Germany in 2025 highlights increasing challenges for Canadian citizens in sectors like business and education. Work visas, which previously might have been obtained with relative ease, now demand extensive documentation, proof of financial stability, and are subject to longer waiting periods, especially in highly competitive professional fields. Universities that once enthusiastically welcomed Canadian exchange students with open arms are now implementing more selective admission processes, often citing rising overall immigration quotas and resource constraints as reasons. But that is not the most concerning part. With a large influx of refugees and migrants from various global crisis zones in recent years, local resources in Germany are undeniably stretched thin. This has unfortunately resulted in rising social tensions in some areas, particularly centered around issues of economic strain and social integration. Consequently, Canadians traveling to certain regions are advised to proceed with caution and be aware of their surroundings, especially in less tourist-centric parts of the country where sensitivities might be higher. And here is the real shocker that many might not consider. The cost of living has soared dramatically, particularly in major cities like Berlin and Hamburg. Rent prices are skyrocketing, making accommodation a significant expense. While the overall German economy remains relatively stable compared to some neighbors, the affordability of everyday life, groceries, transportation, services, is increasingly becoming out of reach for many residents and long-term visitors. This financial pressure has contributed to protests and labor strikes in various sectors, making some regions feel more volatile than they have in recent memory. Germany, long known for its structure, order, and efficiency, now presents a different, more complex picture for prospective Canadian visitors and residents. A country where stability is being tested and the cost of visiting or staying has never been higher. So, before you book that seemingly cheap flight to explore Europe via Germany, ask yourself seriously, is Germany still the easy, uncomplicated destination it once was for Canadians? From the stark dangers of South Sudan and Somalia to the surprising bureaucratic turns in Brazil and Germany, the countries discussed in 2025 have become increasingly challenging, and in some cases, outright dangerous, for Canadian travelers. What seemed like straightforward escapes or welcoming destinations are now fraught with risks, complex red tape, and escalating tensions, both political and social. But here is the undeniable truth. Knowledge empowers. By staying informed about these evolving situations, understanding the specific risks involved in each location, and heeding official travel advisories, you can make safer, smarter decisions about your international journeys. The world is constantly changing, and the landscape for travelers, even those holding historically well-regarded passports like Canada's, is shifting too. Vigilance, research, and a realistic assessment of the situation on the ground are more crucial than ever. If you found this video insightful and eye-opening, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, give it a thumbs up, and share it with your friends and family. Your support is vital in enabling us to continue bringing you these important updates and insights into where Canadians are, and perhaps more importantly, where they are not, unequivocally welcome in today's complex world. Stay safe, stay informed, and always think critically before you travel.